This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're rolling. I
Excellent.
have Jason Estes on the call and myself, Umair Nauman. And Jason has been putting some very interesting updates about some astral events taking place around planet Earth, especially around the date uh, February 18th that's coming up. That's I've been hearing about that date from many sources. So, Jason, I'll let you start off and tell our viewers about yourself and what are some of the exciting new updates that everybody needs to know about.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm just me. So I've lived my life. I've gotten to where I am. Everyone else is living their lives and they've gotten to where they are. And if you're watching this or listening to this, whatever, you've actually gotten to where you need to be because you're still alive. So congratulations. The first thing is just take a moment, just pat yourself on the back, because being alive at this time is just a great honor in itself, even though it might not feel like it, because there's all these things coming at us constantly. Those are actually designed to strengthen us and make us great. See, we're all good right now. We're all good. But the next step of evolution is the greatness, the true greatness of what we are capable of. Our unlocked and unlimited potential is being made manifest. And this next phase that we're coming into, starting on the 18th of February, is this process of cleaning up all those misunderstandings and the mistranslations of the past. So we've all experienced stuff. There's no one that is watching this call who hasn't had some form of traumatic experience in their life. And that traumatic experience, what it does is it actually affects us and keeps us from seeing what we're actually here to see. So as long as those traumas are blinding us and we're only able to see so much through our little tiny slit that's safe, then we're missing out on so much of reality and so much of that opportunity.
Right.
A fun little fact, and somewhere around 1930, we went from processing 30% of reality to 3% of reality as a race. And it was like an overnight transition. People just stopped processing. So as we progress forward, we're actually going to be moving back into processing more of reality and more of reality until eventually we're processing the totality of reality. And that's the goal for humanity, to be able to take everything as it is and fully let it like wash through us without holding on to any of it, to be in that stream permanently. And February 18th is a huge step towards that. I would like to go ahead and take a step back though and say February 16th, because
Mm-hmm.
February 16th is our first Ascended Master gift, which
Yeah.
is the Sacred Fire.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have heard of like the Violet Flame, and there are other flames on this planet that people have called and things like that. But what I like to say is like the Violet Flame is like this little tiny CME version of the sun, right? So a
Mm-hmm.
CME is a coronal mass ejection. It's this little tiny piece of electricity that's thrown off the sun.
Okay.
And in comparison, it's like not even a 0.01% most
Okay.
times, right? It's a very small thing. Well, the violet flame was that coronal mass ejection. It was that little tiny piece. The
Right.
sacred fire is the sun. So here in a few days, we're going to have access to the sun,
Right.
but even greater than our sun. Sacred fire is basically the great central sun, Halcyon. Like it's
Right.
the end game. And we're
Right.
being given that as our first gift from the Ascended Masters and our first Ascended Master gift.
Right.
And I
And
know I'm
to
speaking in like really high level principles. So if
yeah.
there's anything that's kind of confusing
Yeah.
around that, just please bring it up for me.
So one thing I want to get clarification on is when you said we're going to be processing more of reality, what does that mean to me as an everyday person? How do I walk around my day and process more or less reality?
Okay. So imagine that you have a capability to solve mathematics, but you can only solve subtraction problems.
Okay.
That's helpful, right?
Yeah.
But you can only solve subtraction problems. So all of these problems are coming along and they're just starting to pile up.
Mm-hmm.
But as they pile up, they start to weigh down on you.
Right.
And as they weigh down on you, you feel less and less capable until eventually you start losing hope in yourself and confidence in yourself. And now all of a sudden, it's just too depressing. So you're not willing to look at the world. This is what I mean. So as we progress forward, we'll be able to do advanced calculus. We'll be able to do quantum mathematics, like these things. But now this is just an example because everyone knows what math is. That's the whole reason why I'm using this example.
Yeah.
So the more equations we can solve, the more reality we can process, the more wisdom we gain from every moment, or what I call dimensionality.
Right.
The dimensionality of a person is the ability to see the depth of the moment. So if I need like 50% of an echelon and I am only able to get 3% of an experience, it's going to take forever to get that echelon. But if I get 100% of an experience, it might only take one experience.
Right.
Or even better, which is where we're moving into, is alchemy, is I can watch a TV show or a movie about an experience, and if my reality and my ability to process that is clear and the script is written properly, which most of the things these days are very coded, then I'm able to absorb those codes and no longer need that experience. Now, this is what's really important, because when you no longer need experiences, you get to choose experiences.
Right.
So imagine a world where everything that happened in your life was exactly what you wanted.
Right.
That's what happens when you process reality properly.
Right.
But like I said, you know, in the 1930s, we actually lost our ability to process reality. And I still do not know to this day why. I've actually done some research. I've looked at it. I'm like, what happened that caused this? Because it all changed. And I think it has to do more with like the Great Depression and like all these things that they believe so strongly just like come crumbling down. But there's really no way to know because it's not in something that's important. It's just fascinating.
Sure. It just happened. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're moving up now. So like probably by the end of May, we'll be in somewhere between 5% to 8% of reality processing. Now, this is as a whole, right? That's important to understand because other people, like single individuals, can process reality at higher levels already. But as a template for humanity, meaning a minimum requirement to stay alive, we're going to be moving up in that, which means learning a lot more faster, but also not taking on as much tools.
Right.
One of the greatest examples I have for that is imagine that you're walking, you know, this path of ascension. Everyone's walked it, and you come to a giant gap. Everyone's run into this problem, and you're like, how do I get across?
Yeah.
So you and your wisdom start building a bridge. You get this bridge built, and you know it might take you like 10 years to build this bridge, whatever this tool or technology is, or maybe other people now have come to the same part and now they're working with you, and so it takes less time.
Okay.
But you build this beautiful bridge. Now, let me ask you, do you take that bridge, you cross the bridge, right? Because you would, you spent your whole life building it. Why wouldn't you? Do you then go pick up that bridge, put it on your back, and go keep walking?
No, you're going to do it for everybody.
You wouldn't even be able to move, first of all.
Yeah.
But two, why would you take away that opportunity from someone else?
Yeah.
Our job is to make it easier for everyone who comes after us. That's the whole purpose of why we're here. But yet so many people do this. This is called a fixed idea. This bridge worked for me here, so it will work for me here. So I have to take it with me.
Okay.
Work with what works until it doesn't work. And it doesn't matter who that is. It doesn't matter how it is. But the most important thing is do not beat up or destroy the teacher or the tool or whatever. Everything is great until it isn't.
Right.
And if it helped you, celebrate it. And then let it go when you're done with it. It doesn't mean that you have to have this, like, there's a misunderstanding around the word loyalty in this world. Where people believe, well, I have to be loyal to this. And so then they go into self-sacrifice, and then they go into resentment, and then eventually they rage against it. When all they had to do was celebrate it and say, thank you for where we are, but I'm going this way now. And that's the perfect way to approach something like that. And that's that bridge example, right? If I help build this bridge with Bob's here, and like we're building this bridge together, but then I cross over the bridge and Bob's like, I want to go left. And I'm like, well, my heart's actually telling me I want to go right. It's not that Bob is wrong. It's not that Bob is right. It's simply Bob is doing their journey and I'm doing my journey. And we're not going to be compatible right now. And that's okay because the journey is an infinite game. So there is no way to know if you and Bob will ever connect again, but it doesn't matter. And the fact that you think you need to know if Bob will connect again is actually going to stop you from going the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we're headed. We're headed to this freedom. And I talk a lot about the fifth dimension, and a lot of people are like, ooh, fifth dimensional, because it's been misunderstood for so long, because the
Mm-hmm.
fifth dimension was viewed through a third dimensional lens. So
Right.
take a minute to just conceptualize that. Go, okay, well, so if fifth dimension was seen by a third dimensional lens, then the highest they could ever create was a fourth dimensional game,
Right.
which means
Polarity.
that where we're headed, this paradigm that we're in right now, is ending. And all the tools that got us here are ending. But
Right.
instead of being upset about our process with them, like you asked me before, how did I get to where I am? By letting go of what I got to get to where I am.
Mm.
That's like the process is like I've created bridges, I crossed the bridges,
Yeah.
and I didn't pick them up with me. I
Yeah.
continue to just be myself and continue to know that I had everything I needed within me.
Right.
And if I didn't have what I needed, that it would be made available instantly, and then I would have what I needed. So
Yeah.
you see, it's that freedom of surrender that brings us into that fifth dimension. But prior to that, the freedom of surrender doesn't work. Because
Right.
if you look at it from a third dimensional reality, you're looking at it from the irresponsible entity perspective,
Mm-hmm.
which means I need Bob to take care of me, so I'm going to take care of Bob.
Mm.
Well, that's great, and it works totally until you get to the fourth dimension. And then you get into the fourth dimension, and all of a sudden it's like, I just want to take care of Bob.
Right.
Okay, that's great too, but the problem is your identity is now in I want to take care of Bob. So then you get to the fifth dimension, and it's like, I just want to take care of me and play with anyone that can. I like to look at this as the run towards God with all that you are, and
Right.
if anyone else can keep up, play with them.
Right. Right.
But don't ask them to run towards God with all that they are. And God can be anything. It can be the highest version of you. It doesn't matter. It's really up to you what you define God as.
Right.
But to me, it's the ultimate goal. Is like, this is what I want to achieve. This is the greatest example for me at this moment. Is this? So why would I not want to run towards the greatest version of me?
Absolutely.
And anything that sidetracks me in that journey is going to throw me out of the fifth dimension.
Absolutely.
But
So
if
if
everyone else is doing the same thing, then all of a sudden really cool lines start to appear where people are all in the same area because they're all running at the same speed, and
Yes,
it creates this
absolutely.
family feeling, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So if you allow me to just recap my understanding of what you just told the viewers, and correct me, feel free to jump in anytime if I go off track here. So we process a certain amount of reality, and you mentioned 5 to 8% of reality will be able to be processed by the average human being up until May 2019. Is that correct?
No, so in May, that's when we're going to be up at about 5 to 8%.
Yes. Yes.
Also, know the exact number right now because it depends on how many people make the choices and things like that. But that will become the minimum.
Right.
So in other words, if you process 2% or 3% or 4%, right? Anything under 5, your body is going to start to take on so much that it's going to start to
be a backlog.
And yes, exactly, you backlog.
Yeah. Right. So is it true to say that our level of consciousness or awareness or vibration, all of these factors affect how much of reality we're able to process?
Yes.
Are they correlated? Okay. So what are some of the things people can do to improve their ability to process reality? Like, what are some tangible steps you would give them?
Well, first of all, I'll use an example. So if you've ever had a quarter or any type of coin, and you've ever seen a fan that spins, right? And you try to flip that quarter through the fan, what happens?
It just gets knocked out.
Exactly. It never actually makes it to the roof, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible. I guess it could in theory work, but it would be very hard.
Right.
So that's what vibration and frequency is all about. Vibration and frequency helps this bioelectrical field around us keep things from going into us.
Mm-hmm.
So when we upkeep that, we're able to move through the stream so much easier.
Right.
Now the stream is reality. So reality is moving through us. And it can move around us, it can move through us, it's up to us.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can't understand or accept or process is what we backlog.
Right.
So vibration and frequency are a component to that process.
Okay.
As long as you have a high vibration and a high frequency, you can handle more because you're not getting stopped as much. Right. You're not getting triggered as hard or as deeply.
Right. So
now what's going to be really interesting about that is on the 18th, we actually start what is called the physical purge.
Okay.
So imagine a boat, okay? And this is what we've just gone through. We went through what was called the pre-purge. We're technically still in it for a little bit longer. But
Yeah.
the pre-purge was like you're on this boat and you're going down the ocean and waves are rocking you left and right.
Right.
It's not like destroying you, but it's making you uncomfortable. Enough that you're actually willing to look at certain things, right? Because each wave is like an emotion or an energy or an unresolved thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the purge is going to be a little different. So instead of a wave hitting you, it's going to be something that starts drilling a hole in your boat.
Right.
So anything related to the physical that's out of ethics or not where it needs to be, there's going to be this hole drilling through the boat, and it's going to start to take on water. So instead of it being uncomfortable, it's actually life-threatening.
Okay.
And it becomes a point where we can no longer say, this is true, if it's not. If it's not true, it will be very, 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 very obvious because you'll start taking on water. Now, the good news is this level of extreme that's going to be happening with this purge isn't going to be something that is like, this is the most intense thing. We're going to drill like 15 holes. You know, you're going to drown really fast. Any person on this planet is going to be capable of handling the level of highlights. It's whether they actually want to like change or not that is going to decipher whether or not that hole gets punctured all the way through or whether it mends and heals just as fast as it was going away.
Okay. So can we take a step back because I think I want to give people
one more thing. This is really important.
For sure.
So the boat is going to go through this purge, and it's going to go on all these different levels, and we'll talk about that either later on or something like that. But
Sure.
This challenge is that people think that they have to solve all of these problems right away.
Right.
And it helps to work through stuff as it comes up, absolutely. But the universe and this plan that we're in is 10 years long. 10 Earth years long. So just take a moment and think back 10 years ago. Look at how much has changed in your life. And that's nothing in comparison to what's about to change. So
Right.
when you feel overwhelmed and you feel like this trigger, this thing is impossible, know that it's only impossible for you right now, but there's a version of you that it's not impossible for. And that this is to teach you to become that version so that you can handle greater things. So this isn't happening against you, it's happening for you. And that you have 10 years to solve this stuff. So you're not going to just like go underwater immediately, right? It might feel like it because it's going to be a very strong push, but it's not designed to hurt you or kill you. It's just a life-threatening thing that is enough to help you realize that there's needing to change. For most people who've done the work, this isn't going to be that extreme.
Could you expand more on the 10-year period? I'm not sure I understand that. What is that?
Humanity has 10 years to make a fifth dimensional ascension. All they have to have right now.
This year? From now?
Yes. Okay. Well, technically it's 10 years from, let me just look that up because I'm not very good with dates when it comes to the past. April 15th. So April 15th of 2028.
Okay.
That's technically when they have till, but that can also change based on humanity's willingness. And also, this is, again, the template of humanity. So this is the bare minimum. There are going to be people that jump to the fifth dimension as soon as the door is open, and they're like, hey, this is super easy now. I've got this gift. Why wouldn't I use it? Yeah. And then those people will make it easier for everyone else. It's like the bridge example I gave earlier. Yeah. Absolutely. When you get to a giant ravine, you got to stop. Like you wait, and you build and you create, and then someone arrives and they have more tools, and you build and you create, until eventually all of you together build this bridge. Yeah. Then everyone behind you, they don't even know what it was like to build that bridge. But eventually, we're going to get to a chasm that's so big that's going to require all of humanity to build the bridge.
Absolutely. So that's why they say when they're way shores, they make it easier for the rest of the population to follow. That's what it really means. Okay, sounds good. So going back to sorry, what was that?
I said go ahead and ask the question now. Sorry, I just wanted to finish that whole thing because.
Okay, sounds good. So going back to give us more of a perspective on February 18th. You mentioned in your previous updates that there will be a beam of light from the Godhead that will go completely to the core of Earth, and then it will be reflected back from the core of Earth back to the highest source, back to Godhead. What are the implications of that? What does that really mean?
I don't remember saying Godhead, but it's sort
Or
of the same
okay,
thing.
sorry, my
That's
misunderstanding.
okay. It's just Godhead is it's like right here. It's really not
Yeah.
that high up. So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make that distinction. So the
Sure.
celestial light, for the first time ever, will go all the way from the heavens
Okay.
through the earth planes and all of like the astral planes, dissolve it completely, and then
Yeah.
go into the core of the earth where there's a giant crystal, and it will
Mhm.
start to shake that crystal. And all of the astral currents that have been locked into that crystal, which is
Mhm.
basically how we like not necessarily how we relate, but it's like the process of who we are is
Right.
stored in this crystal. The process
Mhm.
of what we're capable of is stored in this crystal. And for
Okay.
most people, their Earth star is the key to everything.
Right.
So that meaning when we change this core frequency at the Earth, all
Mhm.
people's Earth stars have an opportunity to update, which is pretty hard to do. Most people don't even know that that exists.
Right.
So that process is then going to shake and break up all that stuff, and then
Mhm.
it's going to beam back up into the sky all the way to where it was, and then a huge thing is going to go around the planet. And this ripple is going to take every single wall down that ever
Mhm.
existed in the grids that created the separateness.
Okay.
Now,
So
this is
what?
an important step because
Mhm.
everyone's hopelessness comes from feeling alone in the journey. Everyone's. Whoever you are, I don't care. You feel alone if you're in a hopeless state. You don't realize that you have so much support and so much help, which is the reason why I do the updates and things like that, is so that people can say, oh, I'm going through that. Oh, I'm going through that too. We're all going through this together. You're not
Yeah.
alone. But those walls that were built, they were designed to make us not reach into and find others. So the
Right.
day that this happens is really the beginning of the new earth. Because when
Right.
this takes all the walls away,
Yeah.
everyone will be coming out to play. Everyone will be coming out and finding others like themselves. And that hope is just going to just expand.
Right. So can we expect something like a mass awakening occurring after February 18th or shortly thereafter?
I would say that a light switch moment is not going to occur for those that are not awake. That's
Yeah.
what the purge is all about,
Mm-hmm.
is cleaning up enough so they can see.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't want to see the truth.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old parable that talked about how the lie and the truth came together, right? And the lie convinced the truth to go skinny dipping. So it took off all of its clothes and it got in this well. And then the lie stole the clothes and then went into the world and pretended to be the truth.
Right.
It's ancient. I think it's like in the 1800s, this
Okay. I
parable.
haven't heard that, but that's a good
But
one.
it's actually what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is the real, like the truth in this world is so far away from the actuality of the truth that it's become more of an opinion.
Right.
And this awakening that you're hoping for, it's not going to be like that.
Mm.
I wish it was. It would be
Yeah.
great, but at the same time, there's this thing called free will, and
Mm-hmm.
it has to be respected. So while the astral currents are going to be removed from the planet entirely and all living beings except for humans,
Yeah.
humans, unfortunately, are not going to have their astral currents removed. They're going to choose to because all of that light is going to start pushing on them. Like I said, the boat, before it just kind of rocked you, now it's going to start to enter into you and
Mm.
pull out those things that aren't true, create them on the screen of reality, and make
Mhm.
you face them.
Okay, so basically, in layman's terms, all your shit's gonna come to your face.
Yes,
Yeah. So you're
absolutely.
gonna have to face whatever you've been hiding, whatever you've been avoiding, and all the lessons are just gonna keep smacking you until you just face them.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
It's going to
Um,
be amazing because all the people who did the work at this point, when the truth becomes what's actually important again, it's
right.
going to be easy for you to see who's truthful and who's not.
Absolutely, and it's very interesting you say that because just recently, everything that's coming up to news, like I recently heard about John of God, who was a healer from Brazil, and he was very highly respected as he even claimed to be a prophet of God, and he was exposed, and there were sex scandals shown around him, and a similar thing happened with Doreen Virtue, where she just came out and just refuted everything she's been teaching so far. So we see this truth, the energy of the planet is such that the truth is just being forced to come out, and people who were claiming something that was not true are just like either owning up or being exposed. And we can see that in the politics more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree that there is a lot of truth there. I have a hard time with like I know that there are false prophets
Hmm.
and I know their names. I know like who they are on this planet and I don't want them to continue to be in power, but at the same time
Yeah,
I don't want them to have to suffer in that process. Because it's
yeah,
possible for every false prophet to become a true prophet. They just have to
absolutely,
live their teachings. And it's
absolutely.
easy to throw out things and say a sex scandal or this or that because we don't know the whole story.
Yeah,
Like what was this guy's name? One of my students was telling me about him, and he taught tantra. Osho. There was
yeah,
this whole thing around the scandal with Osho. They even
hmm,
made like a documentary around it, and they were like showing all these women like naked and screaming and things like
yeah,
that. And then they were saying, well, like it's the devil's work.
mm,
You know, I've actually been to an Osho retreat in my life, and what I can tell you was that that whole process was totally taken out of context.
mm,
You get to that point because you're in that vulnerability. You get to that point because you're willing to get all of that out, and you're
right,
not doing it to hurt anyone. You're not doing it for anything other than that.
right,
So I have a hard time when people take things and they say, you know, this person is this, or this person is this, or this scandal happened for this, because, you know, we've all had things that are taken out of context and used against us.
absolutely,
I have a
absolutely,
ton of things in my life that people say all kinds of things about. People misunderstand things and they try to demonize and vilify,
yeah,
and it sucks.
yeah,
But only that person knows whether they're a true prophet or not.
that's
And
true.
I hope that if they are a true prophet, that the truth comes out, and if they aren't a true prophet, that they're able to make a choice to become one. Because
Okay,
I believe that
right,
there are so many good people on this planet that got misled a little bit. You know, it's
right,
not hard. The entire spiritual movement that is out there was pretty much created by false prophets on purpose.
mm,
So like the majority of the like this movement that we're in right now isn't true. Like 99% of spirituality is a lie that was created
yeah,
to bring about something because it could stop just enough and keep it just enough contained. But
right,
what happened was that 1%, that 1% changed that 99%, and now we're at a point where there's more truth than there's lie. But we're
right,
looking at all of these outdated systems, and they're coming down.
right,
Gurus, teachers that don't teach others how to teach themselves, that
mm,
aren't leaders that lead others to themselves. That's a great way. Like there's nothing wrong with a leader. Leaders are great. We need them. But a leader's ultimate goal should be to lead you to yourself, not
absolutely,
to lead you this way because it makes the most money, or to lead you this way because it makes the most money.
absolutely.
I'm actually like, there's this thing called Odyssey. I don't know if you saw it on my wall,
Yeah,
but and your movement thing that you're going to be doing as well. Like those things
yeah,
are huge to me because it's the truth starting to finally be recognized. Like
hmm,
Odyssey, the concept behind it is that you have to buy your own ticket as a facilitator. You
right,
buy a ticket, you go through an application process just like everyone else.
yeah,
And it like my very first time I ever taught, I went into a room and they had this high chair that was like this tall and everyone else was forced to sit on the floor. And I went
mm,
and I kicked the high chair over and I sat on the floor.
right,
That's who we are. We're all here and we're all valuable, and it's important that we come together in that collaborative effort. And that's what
absolutely,
Odyssey is. So to see that as something that is coming out, and then to your soul movement thing, you know, like we're in a time where that truth is it's finally time to be it. And for
absolutely,
those that aren't being the truth, they're going to be exposed. For those
ab-
that are actually the truth, they're going to be elevated and they're going to be given a choice to not become the truth. And
right,
that challenge is going to be there. That's what happens with every great teacher. They're given an opportunity to be something else or themselves
right,
because fame does that. So as
right,
we progress, you know, like what you're doing with the soul movement, I don't know if we're okay to talk about that on.
absolutely, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, the soul movement, the ability to take what you've done and to create these sober festivals and then to realize and say, you know, we have this community and they want more.
hmm,
And not only do they want more, but we want to provide more. We want to create a
yeah,
space for them to enter this greater place so that they can actually explore in that greater place. So I
right,
love it because you're creating this opportunity for everything to grow into greatness. And
yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that I support. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see happen more on this planet.
absolutely. That's what we need more of. Just people having spaces where they can feel free to just express themselves without being judged and without being labeled and having any preconceived notions of, like you said, what spirituality is, because there's a lot of misconceptions in many circles about what spirituality should look like, and we're finding that spirituality should just look like what your truth is, and
Absolutely.
nothing else. Yeah, so I'm excited to explore that further with you. Can you speak briefly about how Earth got quarantined and how we came to have these walls around us? Why is there so much falsehood on this planet, and why are there so many secrets that were kept from humanity? We don't even know our true origins. Like, we're
Correct.
just like growing up and finding out, like, holy shit, we've been lied to, or we've been misled for so long.
Yeah.
So what caused all
Well,
of this?
so think about it from this perspective. Atlantis, which was roughly to 20,000 years, somewhere around there. It's hard
Mhm.
because time gets really weird, but it's about 20,000 years ago.
Yeah.
About 20,000 years ago, humanity was reset from a fifth dimensional perspective all the
Mhm.
way to a zero dimension.
Yeah.
Now, the awareness was lost in that process, but some people were able to salvage just enough that they were able to kind of create a little rope to the third dimension. So
Mhm.
instead of like going, oh, we're starting all over, it's like, oh, look, well, at least we only fell to the third dimension.
Yeah.
But everything that was stored up here is still up there.
Yeah.
It's just we don't have the access to it
Right.
because we're in the third dimension. But we
Yeah.
can still remember it because it's still parts of us, but it's fragmented because of all the mistranslations from the dimensional fall.
Mhm.
So it's not that we were lied to,
Yeah.
it's that they thought best was this, and others
Mhm.
thought best was this. And so
Okay.
we created all of these things that we thought was best.
Right.
It wasn't that they wanted to create this, it's what happened. Like I said before, everyone has an opportunity to choose greatness or something else.
Right.
And fame offers that opportunity. The moment that you have people paying attention to you, you
Yeah.
can use that platform for good or for not good.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that because you might not understand the full truth. In
Mhm.
fact, we're only as good as our filter.
Mhm.
So if I'm gaining information from channels and other beings up here, and
Yeah.
I don't have the experience to filter that, then
Yeah.
I'm going to go, oh, well, that's got to be the truth.
Right.
And that's where it becomes dangerous because we then speak what we believe is true to our following. And now
Yeah.
that following then teaches others. And now it's second sourced. Well, it's actually already second sourced because you got it
Yeah.
from an entity up here, which means
Yeah.
it translated in instead of something that you actually grew into naturally.
Right.
Now you have these problems because
Ah.
your students then share this, then shares this, then shares this. And then thousands of years later, we have this cluster of misunderstandings that is Earth right now. But
Right.
during that whole process, we ascended into a fourth dimensional planet. We ascended into a fifth dimensional planet. So now that we are on a fifth dimensional planet, humanity has a choice to let go of those misunderstandings that were created from the fall of Atlantis to now.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, when Atlantis fell, it fragmented consciousness and created
Right.
all these different groups. Those
Mhm.
different groups created walls because of their misunderstandings. And it
Right.
created a problem because it was like, if I believe this and you believe that, we can't be together. So
Yeah.
now we're going to build an oppositional wall energetically because I can't see you because I don't want to know you.
Yeah.
But what actually happened when Atlantis fell was it created three factions.
Mhm.
It created a faction that believed truth was everything and the most important thing. And their truth understanding was translated from something called trust. They
Okay.
believed that trust was truth. And
Mhm.
that's a very dangerous thing because if you believe that trusting something is truth, you're going to have some really interesting experiences getting from trust to truth. Because we
Right.
talked about this before, trust is a fourth dimensional principle. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty high standard to take from a third dimensional reality. Trust in something
Mhm.
greater than yourself, right?
Yeah.
The problem is you don't have the eyes to see clearly. So
Yeah.
trusting in something that's greater than you might not
Yeah.
always be something that's greater than you.
Right.
Which is why we had the extraterrestrials come and play on our planet to mess with us for quite some time. Because it's
Yeah.
like, well, they're higher than us, right? They have a more evolved society.
Yeah.
Let's just welcome those people in. And that
Right.
didn't go so well. We've
Yeah.
had that happen on our planet so many times. I mean, like you
Yeah.
have to look at ancient Egypt where the gods were here and all this. It's
Right.
very fascinating.
Yeah.
So all of those misunderstandings and all of that trauma created the separation.
Hmm.
And that's what we call the astral.
Right.
The astral is the misunderstood or mistranslated.
Hmm.
Over time, there was enough of this that it created this field above us that we call the astral field or the astral plane.
Hmm.
And you get all these people that are channeling masters from the astral plane.
Yeah.
Scares me to death, because to
Yeah.
channel a master from the astral plane is literally saying, well, the astral plane is as high as I can go, so they're greater. But the astral plane is literally a misunderstanding and mistranslated zone. So anything that comes from the astral plane is fragmented truth, guaranteed. It's never going to be true.
For sure.
And if that's all you have access to, though, then that's what becomes your truth. And that led to what we have as the modern day spiritual movement, is a ton of people listening to things outside of themselves that created this whole way of being.
Right.
And now you have these other teachers coming in that are actual true like prophets. They're amazing. And they're saying, hey, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You've got to find the answers within. You can't use substances. You can't do these things, because every time that you take these things, you're going into other realities that's not relevant to this one. So you're learning really cool things, but it's actually not helping you here. It's fragmenting.
Right.
And that's this challenge we're in right now, is the spiritual escapism is higher than it's ever been on this planet.
100%. Yeah. So how does one distinguish a true teacher from a false? Or how does one discern the truth is my real question, when there's so many sources of information?
Yeah, well, first of all, there should only be one source of information, which is your source. That would be like my first step, would be like always follow your source. And if your source is wrong at first, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because at least you're learning what isn't true in your source that has been put there through all the misunderstandings and the lies and the manipulation. Or if you've done drugs, those things, all those things that have numbed you from the truth, you get to work on.
Right.
And that's why most people prefer spiritual escapism, because they have someone to blame. They have an scapegoat. It's like, oh, well, it was my guru's fault. They screwed me up. That's okay. You can say those things. That's a fourth dimensional world. Fourth dimension, by the way, is the victim. To acknowledge that there is someone more powerful or in control of you that you've empowered is a fourth dimensional perspective.
Right.
So really, being a fourth dimensional being is not hard. It just means owning that something else is greater than you.
Right. Okay.
And that's the heart-centered world that we talk about. People in their heart is like them acknowledging that something else is something. People in their Godhead, that's like fifth dimension. That's where you're like here, but you're fully connected here.
Right. So you're saying even if you're not following the path, even if you're following in a divergent path for a time being, it's worth it, because eventually the truth will surface one way or another. That's
Absolutely.
Design, right? Absolutely.
So I call that a poison well still gives water. I have 5 pillars I live by. They're on my Facebook, so I don't want to go over them, but I'll go over this one. A poison well still gives water means that if there is nowhere else, like I'm in a desert, right? And I have never been in this desert before, but I see a well and it's poisoned. I can drink that water. It's going to make me sick, but it's going to keep me alive.
Right.
But eventually, it's going to give me enough strength to keep going.
Yeah.
Or I can just stay at that poison well. If I stay at that poison well, I'm eventually going to die of sickness, not just of dehydration.
Right.
So those wells, and like you mentioned a few of them, I don't think that they're bad. I think that they had a purpose, and they created an opportunity for a lot of healing to take place.
Absolutely.
And as we move forward from those wells, we're starting to find that we are the well, that we don't need others' water. We don't need other things. We just need to remember that we don't need those things. And that's why you're getting greater and greater examples of that. But to distinguish the truth from a lie is discernment. And it's the number one thing that we lost, because we're constantly lied to. The media, all these things are telling us one thing and then we're looking at the world and we're like, but it's actually not true. In fact, what you're saying is your opinion of what's really going on.
Right.
And you're presenting it as the truth.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. And one other point related to that came to my attention recently was that guru lineages are now obsolete or out of date. Can you speak to that?
When you empower someone else to empower you, you're kind of like, imagine that you have trees, okay?
Mhm.
And this tree are great trees. But this tree asks this tree for water, and this tree gives water to this tree, hoping that this tree will give water back to this tree. Here's how it really should look. This tree keeps its water, continues to grow up, so that it creates a canopy, which creates shade for all other trees to grow up easier and need less water.
Mm.
That's the idea of the guru lineage, had it not been taken for granted a little bit. People began to worship that tree and started giving them water so they could grow faster at this like cost of their own development.
Right.
And it did help, because in order to break out of the fourth dimension, they needed a fifth dimensional perspective. And if you empower someone enough, you can boost them into the fifth dimension for seconds.
Right.
You've seen it happen, I'm sure, with like the collective dances and things where people enter a higher state of awareness because there's so much stuff going on and so much energy being put there. That's great. That's a temporary high. But a temporary high still teaches something.
Absolutely.
And so when enough gurus broke through, some of the truth started following through.
Mhm.
And then instead of them taking that truth and saying, hey, this is the truth that's coming through for me, here it is, you're also capable of getting this, they kind of stockpiled the truth and said, here, I'll give you this, but I need this from you.
Hmm.
And it led to the corruption that you're talking about with the guru lineage. But again, that process was imperative to the design of the earth. We had to get back to where we're going. So now that we don't need that anymore, you're going to see it fall away more.
Right. Okay. So the ultimate truth is within us, and we need to follow our own journey in this new paradigm.
Absolutely. But it's a little complicated, because if you're in a third dimension, you're not going to get to the fifth dimension without having someone show you how to get to the fourth dimension.
Right.
Like a third dimensional person can sit in meditation for hours and they don't achieve as much as if they just get a little bit of information from someone that's in a fourth dimension.
Yeah.
Like that's where the cool tools come in, like activations and like quantum K and things like that, is because now you have someone broadcasting a frequency that helps you to align to your divinity in that frequency, and then create this teacher, or what I call an ally.
Right.
And in order to get out of the third dimension, you have to have an ally.
Right.
You have to. Like, there's no way out of the third dimension without it. You don't have to have a physical ally. Some people have guides, teachers, healers, angels, things like that. That's cool. That gets them to the fourth dimension.
Mhm.
But you'll find that anyone who's making the transit from the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension, their guides, teachers, healers, and angels get quiet really fast.
Yes.
Stop.
I experienced that myself.
Yeah. And you know why?
Mhm.
A master will not disrespect another master's journey. It will not happen. So if you are actually working towards the fifth dimension and you still have guides, teachers, healers, and angels, you might want to figure out whether or not they're really what they say they are. Because they won't talk to you. When you get to that point, it's self-sourcing that information. It's you not needing anything other than you to get there.
Right. So can you speak a bit more about 3D, 4D, and 5D, and what does that really mean in the journey of consciousness? What is that experience like? So people kind of get a roadmap, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. So the roadmap's really simple. We all have to go through certain steps and involvement. Like, it doesn't matter. The story changes, but the steps and the outcome are always the same. So in order to ascend, we first have to understand that we are not in control, because that acknowledges that there's something else that we've empowered to be in control, right? That's the first step. Doing that is how you get into a fourth dimensional perspective. You can now blame something.
Can you explain that again? We're not in control. How does that affect us?
The moment that we can acknowledge we're not in control, we can begin to find what is, and we can start to claim our power back from it.
Okay.
So if we can't acknowledge that we're not in control, then we are going to be doomed to the third dimension.
So right now you're talking about in 3D, we're not in control and the environment controls us.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything triggers you and it causes you to react, and you're on autopilot almost always.
Got it. So
very rarely does someone in the third dimension actually consciously do anything. They're a product of their reality. Reality always makes them do things.
Okay. So that's equivalent to being
dimension.
unconscious. That's equivalent to being in an unconscious or spiritually unawoken state.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Got it. Okay.
Fourth dimension, you've acknowledged that you're not in control, and you've begun the process of claiming responsibility back. So let's say that you gave control to a guru.
Yeah.
That guru got you to the fourth dimension. The most common thing is to kill the teacher. It's actually even what most people do. They decide to sabotage, destroy, try to make him a villain. Well, that's actually part of the process of the fourth dimension, because you're vilifying something so that you can get so far away from it. But the thing is, it doesn't need to be that extreme. And when you actually do make it that extreme, what happens is now you've lost your example and you go back down to the third dimension, because now you don't have something to claim your power back from anymore, because you've pushed it away so hard with all of that anger and stuff. You don't want to look at it, the trauma, whatever it is, right? The story. Yeah. But the truth is, you get to that place of the fourth dimension and you can say, okay, I'm now here. You've gotten me here. I'm really grateful for you getting me here. Thank you very much. But it no longer makes sense for us to continue this. I'm ready to begin this journey of the fifth dimension. Now what you do is you start going, okay, well, they taught me this. How can I make that my own? They taught me this. How can I make that my own? They taught me this. Well, actually, that doesn't really make sense for me anymore. And they let it go. You see? And that process of what I call becoming enlightened is the ability to let go of everything that got you to the fourth dimension so that you can start to float up naturally into the fifth dimension.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that fifth dimension, the transition from fourth to fifth is revolving around the idea of surrender?
Yes. Well, faith, but you could say surrender.
Okay.
So 3D is obligation. I need certain things to stay alive. I need certain things to function in reality. I need certain things to look like I am where I am.
Yeah.
Fourth dimension is I trust something else other than me so that I can begin to understand who I am. Fifth dimension is I am that I am, and therefore all that is me. I don't need anyone or anything to show me. I want to play with other things so that I can learn more about me. That's the fifth dimensional approach. So that's where the change comes in. Is fourth dimension is very radically different than fifth dimension.
Right.
And fifth dimension is not compatible with third dimension. If you see a third dimensional person try to interact with a fifth dimensional person, it ends poorly. This person dumps on this person like you can't imagine. They vilify them. They throw everything they can to try to knock that person out. And that's normal, because if a fifth dimensional person presents themselves to a third dimensional world, they're automatically going to be the Antichrist. They're going to be everything that is darkness, because that light is going to cast a shadow over everything that isn't involved.
Yeah.
But the fifth dimensional light is actually like, have you ever seen pictures of orbs?
Yes.
Do you ever notice how they don't create a shadow?
Yeah.
Because in the fifth dimension, there is no duality of that anymore. It's simply, I am. And all that I am is perfect. So my mistakes, as people would call them, are just part of that journey to that perfection. It's part of that chipping away of the misunderstood.
Okay. Makes sense. So would you say that most of humanity on average is existing within 4D, 3D, or
3D.
And do we 3D at the moment? Okay. And do we even has the average human being who considers themselves awakened to some extent or the other? I know that's a very wide term, but do we get to experience 5D or glimpses of it, or?
Yes, absolutely. Glimpses of it's very common. We call it a meditative state. So a meditative state is simply a level above where you are.
Okay.
Not actually that hard to get into a meditative state. You take a shower and you're going to get into a meditative state, right? You do some light toning, you're going to get into a meditative state. How much ever you do is depending on how high in that meditative state you get. But eventually you get to this thing where you disconnect from reality because you're in such a high meditative state.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to evolve your home state equal to the evolution of your meditative state, which means I'm going to tone for 5 minutes and not 6 minutes, because if I tone for 6 minutes, I'm going to space out. If I tone for 5 minutes, I'm going to learn exactly what I need to learn to evolve my home state up so that next time I can tone for 6 minutes. And it's that ability to discern that certain tools are going to push you too fast.
Yes.
I've seen so many people do activation station technology where they're just blown away that it exists. So they do it so fast that they speed up beyond what their ethics can handle.
Right.
And then they train wreck. And then they go into the blame game, and then they're like, it's the technology's fault, blah, 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 and that's okay, because that's them at least getting back to the fourth dimension, right? So that's them, like, that's their process coming back so that they can go further, And eventually they usually come back to the technology a few years later, and they work with it again. But they always work with it in discernment, because that fall that they took them a while to get back from, and they don't want to do that to themselves anymore.
Yeah, it's all about grounding it and bringing it into reality. But that you took me to my next point. Would you mind sharing with people what Activation Station is, how it works, and how they can benefit from it?
Okay, yeah. So Activation Station is a platform for spiritual support. Everyone on the platform that's sending the technology is completely sober, and they live by certain rules and ethics. They're part of the organization of Masters of the Void. So the whole purpose of that organization is to be examples. And to be the greatest examples the world's ever known is like our goal. We are not that yet. We are working towards that, and we have dedicated our lives to be that. So we live by example. Everyone is trained for over a year to be sending that technology, and they're sober, and they're actually sitting down and connecting into their own source connection, connecting to your source connection, and taking the information and sharing it. And what it does is it creates this opportunity for your source connection to create an ally inside of time for you to come into that ally to connect deeper into who you are. And the way that works is we basically take information like wisdom whenever we've processed an experience or whatever, and usually we dedicate a few weeks to write some technology, and it's about 7 days per activation is what on average it takes. So we take a concept and we go and we study it deeply. In meditation, we learn, we change our entire life and all that reality projects to teach us about this certain concept. Then we write those codes and frequencies down, and then we're able to create a technology so that other people don't have to go through the intensity that we went through to gain that awareness, so that they can, again, have choice. The whole purpose of Activation Station is to speed up the evolvement process. So what you can do within 1 year is equivalent to like 30 years of devout meditation.
Right.
And that happens because we work with timeless technology to bring into time so that you can actually gain more information per second than usual.
Okay, got it.
The other thing is there's something called Nifty Ninja Tech. This is still an Activation Station. The Nifty Ninja Tech works differently. So activations work from timeless to time. Activations work from time to timeless. So what we're doing with the Nifty Ninja Tech, the whole purpose of it is it actually helps you, the personality, evolve into you, the timeless divine. And activations work from the timeless divine into you, the personality, allowing you to become that in this form as well. So working with them together is the quickest way to get to that space. But working with Nifty Ninja Tech is a lot harder, because it's actually working with your reality as you know it right now. Whereas activations, they work subtly up in the ethers to help you to get closer to where you are.
Okay. So just to explain the process to our users or viewers, I should say, you can go to activationstation.org. You can create an account, and from there on, you can request various activations. Some of the ones I tried were Faith, Azure Light. So let's say I request an activation for Azure Light. What happens on your end? And
well, that's actually an attunement.
Sorry?
Azure Light's an attunement.
Attunement. Okay. So sorry, I'm still new to this, and I'm still learning. I'm trying to.
It's completely brand new. Everyone's new.
Yeah. So I want to give our viewers the general workflow of how this technology works, because I consider myself a pretty technical guy, but I'm still not fully able to understand how the technology works. So if you can go into a bit more depth, so users kind of know what they're getting into, rather than just like going on faith and saying, okay, it must be good for me. So let me try.
Faith is the goal of it, right? It's a fifth dimensional platform. We work from the fifth dimension to the 13th dimension and try to bridge them. But so you start out and you open up an account. You have to buy Ascension credits to do it. Ascension credits are the in-app currency. So any currency that you're coming from is then turned into Ascension credits. And the reason we do that is so that everyone is working with the same currency.
Okay.
So once you have that currency, what we call Ascension credits, you're then able to do activations, which are always love donation. Nifty Ninja Tech always has a set cost.
Okay.
And then you have attunements, which are like Azure and like Grand Portal Reconnection and things like that.
Yeah.
Azure is an attunement, so there's a lot more like involved. For instance, the first
Okay.
time you receive it, you have to have fasted for 4 hours because the amount of electricity that comes through your body, you need to not have things that are going to cause a feedback inside of it. Azure Light, the first level, is actually designed to update the body to a celestial template so that
Okay.
it can process the energy easier. It was one of the very first celestial technologies on this planet, and it will be one of the most powerful ones as we progress because of the fact that sacred fire is where it's from. Like, I went all the way back up to first source to bring down Azure, and it took months and like lots and lots of support from lots of people to keep me alive while I was gone. So it
Yeah.
was like a huge ordeal. Activations are something that comes more from like the higher dimensions down. And
Yeah.
so those are love donation because they're done where you can receive them once and you're always only donating whenever it's time for time. This is
Right.
important to understand because a lot of people go, well, what is love donation? And why
Yeah.
am I love donating? Who's getting it? Well, your facilitator is getting it. So whoever actually takes this request, so let's start over again. You come in, you buy Ascension credits, you
Yeah.
go and let's say you want to choose Crimson because that's where I tell everyone to start. So they start and they do Crimson 1, they hit request, it goes into a queue on the facilitator side where I talked about before, all the sober facilitators, we live with the law of sobriety. So you're never going to have to worry about entities coming in through that. That's the beauty of that. But now you have this queue here that facilitators can see, and anyone who's capable of sending it, which means they've gone through the training, it's usually about a year, they're able to then send that. So now they go and they click send and they go and they sit in meditation and they send that technology by allowing their body to be the channel that the information runs through so that it can be in the physical plane. And then they resource it for that person so that it's actually in and through their source connection. And now they're done sending it. It shows up and it'll say, Crimson 1 is now ready for you. Now you click Crimson 1 and immediately that download starts to come through your body. Now, most of the time, it's more than most people can handle. So what we recommend is that they deepen it once or twice until they feel like it's fine. What we found with most people is they fall asleep when they start receiving it because it's so intense that they can't process it, so they just lay down. Well, you can always deepen it infinitely. And each time that you deepen it, it's free. Because once you've paid for the facilitator's time, you have access to that current. It's yours for life. And actually, we say for immortality because all this technology is eternal.
Got it.
The Nifty Ninja Tech's the only exception to that. Because every time that you request it, so like NPH is a Nifty Ninja Tech, neuropathic healing. When you request it, it goes to a facilitator queue. They send it to you, same thing, right? The difference is that there is no way to deepen it because it's a session designed specifically for you where you are right then and there as a personality to bring you closer to your divinity.
Okay, sounds good. So I'd like to just invite everybody who's listening to this call to try out activationstation.org and try out these cool new technologies that are available to us now. And thank you, Jason, for making this available to Earth. One final question. You mentioned about the Ascended Master gift that's coming on February 16th. Is that Sacred Fire the same as Azure Light, or is it something different?
It's part of it, yeah. So Azure Light is the source flame. So it's like the flame that is part of Sacred Fire. So kind of like, how do I describe this? Like the core of Sacred Fire is where Azure comes from. And the Azure flame is that of Sacred Fire.
Right.
So the attunements is working with that celestial sun and bringing that in so that you can stabilize with it easier.
Okay.
That's why the first one requires you not to eat for 4 hours is because you're literally updating your template to a celestial template from a human template, which is a pretty big update.
Makes sense. And how do we use this Ascended Master gift on a day-to-day basis? I know for Violet Flame, you use it to transmute heavy and dense emotions. Is it similar for the Celestial Fire that is now available to us?
Yeah, the Sacred Fire, the way I would like to describe it is like if you can imagine like a sun, but you imagine it as like a blue sun, just like a beautiful azure, like glowing sun, right? You can kind of see it in your eye right now. If you bring that into your heart, you'll start to feel like all that heat burning in your body and like you might start to feel the sweat, stuff like that. That's how you use it. It's that simple. You just connect to it and you bring it into you and you allow it to just transmute and burn through those things, kind of like you do with violet flame, except it's like a million times stronger. So when you
Okay.
start working with it, you start sweating. That's beautiful.
Got it. So this is something that's available to all of humanity now, and I invite everybody who's listening to this to make use of this opportunity. And thank you, Jason. Is there anything you would like to end the call with? Any messages?
I just feel like the most important thing is Ascension's not designed to be afraid or to be scary or anything like that. It's designed to be a great opportunity for us to move to the next level. So what I would close with is saying, this might sound complicated. We've covered a lot of things in this call, and those things might seem like they're just overwhelming to you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry. You don't need to know how things work. That's analyzing, and that's a fourth dimension. In the fifth dimension, it's all about faith. So follow what makes sense. In your heart, do you feel that this is resonant? Do you feel that this is right? And if you do, then you work with it until it isn't. And you're always going to outgrow everything that ever exists. You just are. That's what change does. Really good stuff grows with it. Not good stuff doesn't grow fast enough, and then it just falls away.
Absolutely.
But again, don't vilify that which doesn't work for you. Simply acknowledge it in gratitude and move forward. Because by doing that, you skip the fall. Because every time that you vilify something, every time that you throw enough power at something to like be angry at it or anything like that, you're actually taking that power away from you and knocking yourself down. So instead of being angry or upset with the world, take the time necessary to claim that power back that you've given out, and just accept that you didn't know what you didn't know, and that it's okay. Because it is okay. The only thing that I would say is not okay is when you bring something in that isn't true so strongly that it becomes you. And even then, you can still learn something from it. So as time progresses, it will become okay again. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. So just be aware that this process we're in is beautiful, wonderful, and it may be challenging, but it doesn't have to be something that destroys you. You don't need to be destroyed again. We've gone through that already. That happened all of 2017 October to all of 2018 October. Everyone on the planet's gone through it. We're good with the destruction phase. All we have left is the letting go phase. Let it be a beautiful washing energy that just helps you to be free.
Absolutely. And February 18th is a big day, and we're planning to take that day off to meditate. Is there any helpful advice you can give to users, viewers, how they can take advantage of that day?
Yeah, so 5 p.m. Central Standard Time to 5 a.m. Central Standard Time is the peak of that. At 5 p.m. is when it starts to come down. So what I'm actually going to do is go outside at around 5 p.m. and just watch the sky, because I love watching energy like rush to the earth. It's just like beautiful. To me, with dimensional sight, I can actually see it like the aurora borealis. It's just like all of these sparks and different colors are like dancing. But instead of it just being in the sky, I actually get to watch it dance all the way down to the earth. So that's going to be magical. For anyone that has sight or anyone that wants to have sight, it's not that hard. All you have to do is just allow yourself to see. And allowing yourself to see is as simple as just taking a moment and like putting your fingers like this, looking for a distortion, putting energy through your hand, looking for a distortion, continuously doing that until you can create a distortion like this. And then when you have that distortion, you're able to work with it. Allow yourself to dimensionally look at that until you can see energy. Then take that same imprint and look at the sky, and you'll see energy. And just watch that rain down, because it's going to be like an invisible rain shower of rainbows. And that is going to be the most beautiful thing I probably get to see for a very long time. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But the even cooler part is going to be around 4 a.m. when the energy starts reverberating back up, because it's going to be very fast. Once the crystal's done and it comes back up, that's going to be amazing, because you're going to see this beam of light come from the earth up to the heavens and spiral all the way around again and come back up through the earth, but as a totality. And that's going to be the freedom. So that starts around 3 a.m. and ends at 5 a.m. So that's going to be another great time. And this is in Central Standard Time. So just obviously take your own time to find out exactly what time that is for you.
Yeah, sounds good. And you mentioned something about around something approximate to, I don't want to quote you here, but every particle in existence being rewritten.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What
Well,
does that
not
mean?
necessarily rewritten, remade.
Remade. Okay.
So all of the astral currents in
Mhm.
existence in this planet will be removed in that period of time. And
Mhm.
that's what that spike is, and we call it the celestial spike. So
Yeah.
basically,
And
there will be no more astral currents, which
yeah.
means that humanity will have a choice for the first time ever to
Mhm.
embrace the celestial light and the celestial rain. And that's where we're headed for the next 2 to 6,000 years, is
Yeah.
that process of here we are, we've made it. What do we want to do?
Mhm. Amazing. So thank you, Jason, for your time, and looking forward to connect with you soon. Hopefully, after February 18th, we can touch base, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of new exciting topics to discuss. So thank you
Yeah.
once again for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much. It was an honor. Have a blessed and beautiful one.
You too. Bye now.